president of ICF South Florida. I'm so excited, and I want to embrace the theme of courageous conversations and be candid and say, I'm feeling a lot of sensation about today's panel and discussion. There are few topics more timely and more necessary than how we as coaches can have courageous conversations and hold space for our clients and employees to do the same. If you're anything like me, when you thought about today's topic, you too likely felt a mix of excitement, but perhaps also some trepidation. Being bold with our communication, choosing candor, giving feedback, and calling out harm and inequity when we see it, it can feel really awkward and uncomfortable. And while it can be hard to remember that in the moment, learning to be present with discomfort, as I know we'll explore today, is a part of it. When we have our ICF board meetings, we strive to have courageous conversations. I want us at ICF South Florida to have the courage to speak up when it's uncomfortable, to be open to being challenged, to be genuinely curious about one another, and to know that sometimes we're going to get things wrong. And we'll be stronger together as a chapter when we pursue courageous conversations anyways. In our chapter, while we have grown our membership by over 116% in the last year and are now nearly 500 members.
Yay.
Yay. Our membership is still predominantly white women and straight. Representation matters. It is rare to be able to bring together and learn from a panel who are exclusively LGBTQ plus leaders. It is an honor as president of our chapter to use my voice and my influence to help make today happen. It can feel hard, maybe even really scary to talk about race, gender, identity, and sexual orientation, inclusion, and belonging in our chapter, which happens to be in a state where laws are being passed banning the exploration of these topics in schools and government. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for braving discomfort and being here. Thank you to our moderator and VP of DEIB, Andre Brown, and to our incredible panelists for holding space for this important conversation. Once again, we are ready for this. I am ready for this, so let's go. Thank you, guys. I turn it over to you, Andre.
Misha, thank you so much. I have come to the point where we can actually start this, and I am so excited to have these guests. Gary Sleeper, Yannick Picard, Elias Scotori, Victor Gonzalez Galeano, and Patricia Lee Patty. We're very excited to have this great panel, and we're going to start with Gary first. So our first question is this. Gary, what is the impact of your gayness in coaching your clients?
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I love that you have a theme of courageous conversations, because I think that my gayness came from a courageous conversation, because in order for me to be here to say gayness, I had to have that conversation of being out. Mm-hmm. One that I hope someday will never be something that has to happen, except for the straight kids. And then they'll be going, Mommy, Daddy, I hate to tell you, but I'm straight. I couldn't help but refer to a friend's book, Gay Men and the New Way Forward. And when I think of gayness and coaching, I'm going to read a sentence from his book that kind of summarizes it all for me. Consider the ripple effects of the millions of gay men and women who have come out around the world, and the many millions of actions we take daily in which we model authenticity. So when you ask me the question about my gayness, I would translate that to my authenticity, because being gay is a part of who I am. It's not all of who I am. And I think there's the courageous part of that is I really like riffing off that theme, Misha, is I have no, I still to this day, when I introduce myself to a new client, have a little bit of my heart goes, and yeah, and I live here in Toronto with my husband, Patrick. And then I wait. And nothing happens. Drives me crazy.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, Gary, for your response. I mean, and one of the things that you actually spoke on that I think is important is the fact that you know your gayness, quote unquote, comes secondarily. It's part of you. It's not the defining characteristic of who you are. And I think that's great.
Yeah, but wait
So
till you ask
Yannick,
me the next question. Then you'll hear
that's right.
really who I am.
All right. We can't wait. All right. Yannick, what are some ways we can empower the younger generation of the LGBTQ plus community to have courageous conversations about their identities?
Yeah, that's such an awesome question, right? Because like always thinking of like passing it, like looking forward at what the next generation can do and how we can actually help them. And I think that a couple of things come to mind. One is emphasizing creation of safe and inclusive spaces where they can feel secure and validated in their own identities. The other thing that we can also look at doing is discuss like the role of mentorship and offering direct support and guidance to these young individuals, and maybe help them by suggesting strategies to develop programs, or maybe leveraging what's already there to get maximum input. And the other thing that we can do is let's start speaking about the need for inclusive education in schools, as opposed to what's going on in parts of the world in some of the states where like the opposite is being done. So let's take a look and see how reforming the curriculum and adding additional initiatives like workshops or content, etc., can also help. And so the other thing also that comes to mind is let's focus also on the significance of self-expression as a tool for self-discovery and self-affirmation. So are there ways that where we can propose where we can promote self-expression, and maybe hosting events showcasing some of the stuff, like maybe it's art that's targeted towards our youth?
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Patty, acknowledging that not all LGBTQ plus clients experience coaching the same, what do you believe is a key characteristic for the coach?
I only get one key characteristic. No, only kidding. Yeah. So
you can add as many as you.
I might. Everybody can add on and just pile it in on.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, I think first we just have to kind of put it out there, right? That the courageous conversation is also one about education, right? How do we become more self-aware? How do we become more aware of what's going on around us? And I just want to pause there for a second, because I don't know everybody who's on this call or on this Zoom, right? And there might be others listening who are listening to learn and to understand what's going on within the LGBTQ community. So I just want to stop for a second and just share 2 points of reference for those of you who are on your learning journey. Okay, so first of all, LGBTQ plus IPSTA LMNOP. I always get the question. I'm going to put it out there right now, right? And I'll answer your question in a second. But this is important, right? This is a foundational understanding, right? So lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, pansexual, two-spirited, and asexual. All right. So if that's not hard enough, LGBTQ. There you go. right? That's what kind of rolls off our tongues anyway. By the way, it's very confusing, and I think it's very off-putting to some of the people not in our community, but there is a great example on how language can be a barrier. In this example, LGBTQ plus Q, that's the barrier, right, to having a conversation. But let's set the stage, right? What can a coach do? Educate. Let me give you another example. The landscape right now. We have 525 anti-LGBTQ plus bills introduced and more than 70 signed into law so far in the year 2023 here in the United States. This is an attack. I'm going to use that word. This is an attack on the human rights of many of the American citizens. Some estimate anywhere between 8 to 10% of the population. And then I just pause and I say, there's two examples of what coaches can do, right? Coaches can lean in and begin to understand the language that is used within our community. And they can also lean in and understand what's going on within the courts, within the political system, the social system, the economic system, the environmental system, what have you, that might be impacting our community. And within that, you are now getting more understanding, more interests, more knowledge to have a conversation, to have that courageous conversation, right? Because we have to educate ourselves, we have to be aware, and then we have to have enough information by which when our client begins to share, or we begin to ask deeper questions, we have the knowledge and information to exchange and understand and build some level of knowledge and awareness of each other. And I think that's really where coaches need to start. They need to start with understanding, they need to start with education, they need to start with conversations. But I always say to folks, start with Google, just Google things. And believe me, there is an enormous amount of information out there. Some of it bad, but a lot of it is good.
That's great. I really appreciate your answer because, like in having conversations, and I mean, and not to go off into the, into the state by state breakdown of how our society is being impacted, like our government, our actual government, our legislators are looking to take away our freedoms in certain ways. But I think the fact that we have people, like it's really important as coaches. I think people see us as leaders, whether we want to see that or not, or hear that or not. People see coaches as leaders, and it's important for us to be educated about what's going on in our world, around, especially because it's, it's so tied to, not only our clients, but just how we are operating in the world. We need to have that understanding. So thank you for that, Patty. All right. So Victor.
Yes, sir.
Our question for you is, what are your challenges and opportunities as a gay coach?
Okay, so I'll tell you about the great opportunity. When you say what are the challenges and opportunities as me being a great coach, or the opportunities that I have with my clients, or the opportunities. So I just want to make sure I'm getting the right question.
Sure. What are the? I'm sorry. I gave you the wrong question. So
Okay.
of course.
Yeah, I'm a great coach. I like to think so.
And thank you for recognizing that. So your question: what are the negative and positive factors associated with the well-being of LGBTQ plus people in the workplace?
Okay, so I can go many different ways on this one. Educating is the first thing that I like to think of. But having experienced corporate America and understanding the importance of DEI in corporate America, I'm gonna go that route, all right? And now, at the end of the day, regardless of what we do, I'm always going to be circling back to a holistic well-being. So you ask about the positive or the negative impact, right? And I'll stay with the positive for now, because let's think of a word: rejection. And I have felt rejected many times in the workplace. The minute someone recognized that I was part of the LGBTQ community. And so what does that do to an individual? If we just take rejection from the psychological part of it, then it's not feeling. So if I stay with the positive, we're going to be accepted. If we are accepted, then I'm going to feel included. And so inclusivity is going to be part of it, which is going to create greater engagement. So the positive part of it in the workplace, when we embrace that LGBTQ community, then it's going to create a greater engagement. And we know the great deal of impact that can make in the satisfaction, productivity, profitability, and performance. So you'll hear me talk about the P to the third power: performance, profitability, and production. Yes, Michelle, add that one to my repertoire. So all of those are good things that happen when we are accepted, when we are loved for who we are, not for who someone wants us to be. And I often get reminded on that rejection part of the movie Forrest Gump. Everybody watched Forrest Gump. And if you haven't, I'm going to encourage you to watch. There's a part when he's sitting on the bench and he's telling his story, and he's telling this person that's sitting next to him about the first time that he went on the school bus. And if I can paint a picture for you, he goes in the school bus, he's got all these things in his legs, and everybody's looking at him like he is from another world. What the heck's wrong with you? What's wrong? And he's looking for a place to sit down, and everybody's telling him no. He goes all the to the back, from the front to the back. Imagine the emotions that he's feeling, going looking for a place to sit, and everybody's saying, not here, man. Go somewhere else. Until at the end, this young lady who became his best friend and his love of his life asked him if he wanted to sit by her. So all those same emotions are the same emotions that we're going to feel at work when we are either rejected or accepted. So I can give you the numbers. I can give you we can talk about.
Victor.
You hit mute,
You're
Victor.
mute, Victor.
On mute.
You're mute.
See what happens when you go on body language? They didn't do this for Latinos because, we're always talking like this. So we can talk about the $1.7 trillion that small businesses to the U.S. economy, or the $914 billion of purchase power that individuals have. And so think about the possibility of the numbers of profitability that businesses may be losing because of their inability to embrace the workforce as a whole. Now, I'm not going to bore you with what's wrong because you already know what you can do when it's great. So let me stop there to see if you have any backup questions or anything.
So I love I love the whole example of Forrest Gump and the fact that he had somebody like you bringing us through that school bus and having us relive that is really powerful, because that's what it feels like to feel isolated and not have the support of anyone. But then, someone who's brave enough and willing to, and has the compassion to step forward and say, hey, you can sit next to me. That's, that's what it comes down to, is that there are lots of people in the world that are willing to do that, and we need to celebrate that. And
I give you a gift. That's our superpower.
That's our superpower.
That
Absolutely.
being different, that gayness is our superpower.
Absolutely.
Just like
Absolutely.
Forrest Gump took that as an opportunity to become who he became, we can do the same thing with that, because we can impact people's lives in such a positive way by being the mentor, the coach, or to help somebody understand from a total different perspective what it was and what it really is. Because it's all about the education. It's all about understanding what gay is. And I'm believing what you believe, what somebody said to you, because you gave life to the words that you might have heard from someone else as to what gay is or it's not. Just for you to relearn and understand the beauty of the individual in front of you, as opposed to what you're making out of it just because he or she happens to be gay.
Absolutely. Thank you, Victor. All right, Elias, we get to your question. And this is, I assure you, this is your question. What are your challenges and opportunities as a coach who is gay?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you, everybody, for having us here. And just a pleasure to connect with ICF South Florida yet again. So I so appreciate the opportunity here. I'm going to piggyback on what Gary said in his answer. I think that for me, both the challenges and the opportunities come with the word authenticity. And I'm going to go back here for me to explain this. I'm going to go back all the way to the beginning. I grew up in Brazil, and that's where the first 25 years of my life happened. And I was fortunate enough to have this incredible mother who was so wise. My mother, my clients, it's so funny because my clients all know my mother. Because once in a while, my mother shows up in my coaching, and I have a phrase or I have a saying that my mother, gave to me that somehow shows up in my coaching. But I have to bring her back here because I grew up in a very religious family, and I'm gonna use the word conservative, but you have to remember it's Brazilian conservatism. So you have to put like a grain of salt in that conservatism because it's a little different than the American conservatism, but it was still very conservative, right? So, but my mother, and in her wisdom, the gift that she gave me was the gift of questioning. And you're gonna notice in that story, the parallel of my journey all the way to becoming a master certified coach. It started right there. My mother giving me that gift of questioning, and my mother was one of the wisest person I've ever met. And as I said, because of that, even though she was very faithful to her religion and to her tradition, she didn't have the fear of asking a question. Actually, she loved the challenge of a question. In her world, it was like she truly believed that all the answers she would find was within her religion and the Bible and all of that. But she gave me that daring spirit of asking questions. What is this? What happened to me was that as I was growing up, I started noticing that things inside of me were not quite in alignment with the environment that I was in. So what was my resource here? Ask questions. So that was the place where it started for me, this path of authenticity. And I love to use this word of path of authenticity because I always say, with my students, mentees, when they are preparing for their ACC and PCC, I always say okay, ACC, PCC, we are focused on a lot of the technique of coaching and the skills of coaching. But I truly believe that the path from PCC all the way to MCC is a path of authenticity. You can't get your MCC without going through that journey. So it started right over there. And I think that this authenticity is both the challenge and the opportunity that I bring to my clients, because having had the opportunity to go through this journey of, I had to go inside of me. I had no choice. I had to go in and I had to connect to the essence of who I am for me to survive, right? For me to be here. So coaching is a human to human experience. I'm not there to develop the professional. I'm there to develop the person, the individual. So it is an invitation to this path of authenticity. Because I went through this and I continue to go, right? I'm not done yet, but because I have had the opportunity to go through this, regardless if I am overtly, if I say specifically things about myself or not, just the fact that I'm here, just the fact that I'm here is an invitation for the other individual to also enter this path of authenticity. That to me is the opportunity and the challenge that I bring at every moment. And now I am fortunate enough to have this opportunity to connect with people from all around the world on a daily basis, and be able to talk with my students, with my clients, with my mentees, influence the ICF as a community. And trust me, every time you see my face, in the back of my mind is exactly that. I have accepted this challenge of going deeper into me and seeing the core of who I am as much as I can. And I still struggle sometimes, but my challenge to everyone is, how can we all, regardless of where you are, embrace the core of who we are? That's where we can find our mastery in coaching.
I love it. That's powerful. That is really powerful. And it makes sense. Like being able to get to the core of who we are. If we're going to help people, we really need to be able to get access to the core of who we are as people. And I love the whole piece about the path of authenticity, whether it's during opportunities or challenges. It really doesn't matter. So thank you for that, Elias. All right, back to the top. Gary, you said you were gonna bring it on this question, or you had something really to say on it. So I know that you, like, just based on reading your profile, you have had some experience doing DEI work, and so this question is really about, how did you first become aware of DEI?
Oh, great question. Thank you for asking that one. Okay, I'm going to go back to what Misha said about her chapter, and I can say that was also the case when I first learned or was impacted profoundly by the term DEI. And it was approximately 8:20 in the morning, Vancouver time, Victoria time rather, June 13th, 2019, when Dr. Robin DiAngelo, the author of White Fragility, took the stage. And don't get me wrong, I've realized this as fact, not as being pointed out or called out, as a white man of privilege. Up until then, I'd never heard it. At first, when I heard it, I was in this room with 76% white women of a certain age coaches at the ACTO conference in Victoria. And so I stood out, and I'm 6'2", so I stand out already, and I'm super white. So I stood out again, right? And there I was at the back of the room as a vendor, because I'm the publisher of choice, so we were a sponsor. I have to tell you, it was like my whole world got turned upside down. Like when we talked earlier, and I said, I'm a man who's gay. I'm a person who's gay. It's not I'm a gay man. I'm a man that's gay. Well, I couldn't escape that I was a white man of privilege, because that's like kind of in your face. And when I calmed down and realized that that's just was fact and not a label or a designation or anything wrong or bad or good or anything, it just was what was so, I started to realize and listen to what it meant. And I live in a very, very multicultural community called Toronto. We probably have festivals for every single country on the planet, every summer, closing every other street in the city for festivals, okay? Including one of the world's largest, the Gay Pride Festival. Just to say, and I walked in it this past Sunday with pride. It opened up a whole world for me that I didn't think about. So why I referenced where I live and what's going on, who the people are here is, all of a sudden, I wasn't just me walking through the world oblivious to anybody else. Not that I'm oblivious, but what I started to think is, for example, I'm part of the British Commonwealth, but so is India. India was ruled by the Brits, and then they weren't. My building that I live in, the people I work with are primarily, Mississauga is a lot of Indian background. I started to think about how they might be looking at me having been ruled and dictated to by white men of privilege. So I started to think more about that and to look for stories and listen. And I came to realize that the impact for me of DEI and B is, and I add the B, because, and I'll tell a little bit about that, but it just so resonated with me as how oblivious I was. And again, I'm not making myself wrong or anything. It was just like this eye-opening moment that I couldn't turn back from. And some of the things I've done since then, I was on the board of member in the board of the Gay Coaches Alliance, now celebrating its 20th anniversary. Yes, and there's a couple of members here as well, and soon to be's. Just not pointing out any names there, Walter. And I started the DEI and B Council. I published, as I said, I published Choice Magazine, and I started to notice things like, back to you, Misha, and your topic of all the white women. My board was made up of all of white women and me. So I started to learn more and ask more questions, and I continued to ask questions, but more importantly, the stories I started to hear that informed me as to what was really going on. We go back to the question about how does your gayness impact your coaching? Holy cow. I was on a call today with a man of color, a Black man, and he was in his car and I heard a police siren. My heart jumped. And then he said, oh yeah, okay, I'm in my parking garage now. And I'm like, I was sweating for this guy because I've heard of what happens and how Black men have to teach their kids how to be prepared to deal with the police, right? Things like that. So I think I'm just going to wrap by saying it's infected all areas of my life. I can't have dinner time conversations with my family when it comes to this BIPOC stuff because they just don't get it. My mom's an old German Catholic, okay? She thinks, people belong in certain places, including me. But, it's just like you gotta pick your battles. One of the battles that I can easily pick is in Choice Magazine, we changed the board. The board is now a very multicultural, diverse board, international as well. And we have a column that we started back after 2019 called Kaleidoscope. And it's talking about DEI and B issues related to coaches and coaching. So my journey's not done. I look forward to hearing more of the stories and to participating in the change that needs to happen in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gary, for that. I mean, we just have to continue to work together. And I mean, one of the things I love about this group, and coaches in general, typically, is that we are people that do care about people, and we want to see, people feel a sense of belonging. We want to create that inclusive environment. We want people to be able to be who they are. And so thank you for giving us that. All right, Yannick, what does courageous conversations mean to you within the LGBTQ plus context?
All right, so I'm going to start off by bottom lining it. So it's about having the courage to be authentic when hiding is usually and often the easier route to take. So I'll say that again. It's about having the courage, or finding the courage to be authentic when hiding is often the route well traveled. So, and what that means is also oftentimes there's a potential for misunderstandings. There's a potential for rejection by having these courageous conversations, or being judged by others. And we are so conditioned as human beings to stay away from what's uncomfortable. Like, we love our comfort zone, and it's always fear-based, whether it's real or it's something that our brains concocted. Courageous conversations can be anything. And because what I deem as courageous conversation, being a white gay male living in Canada, a really privileged, versus somebody living in other parts of the world where gays are persecuted. And so a courageous conversation could be something that is so simple for one person, but so complex for someone else. And an example of that is myself coming out to my dad, or coming out to my mom. I had rehearsed it in my head how it would pan out. And interestingly enough, I got the right results, but for the wrong person. See, my dad was a retired Air Force captain, and I thought for certain that the outcome would be negative. Whereas I thought with my mom, like the mother instinct and all that stuff, that it would actually turn out to be positive. And I was surprised when that flipped. So a conversation coming out to your parents might be a very courageous conversation for many. Or on the flip side, maybe it's somebody that was married for a number of years, has teenagers now, and has arrived at like the realization that what was something that he embarked on 15 years ago didn't align with who he was or who she was, and now needs to share that information with their partner, their kids, their own parents who might be at that point elderly, like 70, 80, and they might have own set ways, just as Gary had shared. And so it's all these types of conversation that sort of at an individual base, like, is something that takes courage for them, because it's something that requires them to step into the unknown, which, you know what, we all know this. It's like, we would rather the devil that we know than the devil that we don't know, no matter how terrible the devil that you know is. We'll always go back to what's familiar. So coming out to parents, or, you know what, having the liberty to be self-expressed, either by sharing music or sharing your art, is another way of having courageous conversation. It's not necessarily just limited to using your voice. And the other thing also is that it's not always or just about challenges. Like, it can also be used to celebrate uniqueness, these experiences, and the richness of the LGBTQ community. And so encourage dialogue that can cultivate a sense of pride with individuals and the broader community.
That's great. That is great, Yannick. What really resonates with me is that you mentioned the courage to be authentic, and that's been a theme like all the way through. We've been talking about authenticity, but it does take a lot of courage. It takes like if you are going to be who you really are, there are times like some of us it might be easier for us to be authentic and be open, and in others it might not necessarily come as easily because of the way society looks at us. But thank you for kind of touching on those things. And you're right, we should be celebrating uniqueness. There's so many different people in the world, and there's a lot, like we all have something to offer, and really appreciate you kind of touching on that. Thank you.
Absolutely, Andre. Thank you.
All right, Patty, and we've had a little discussion about or talked a little bit about the DEIB space, and so this is another question about DEIB. So, as a DEI practitioner and now consultant, what are your thoughts on LGBTQ plus and coaching?
Yeah, so let me give a little bit, like a half of a second back step here first, right? So 35 years corporate America in human resources. There's a little bit more, but let's say 35. And then 20 years in the diversity space, still in corporate America. And then God bless the year 2020, without job, I get into consulting and coaching. So coaching for 3 years now. And so what really happened for me is this convergence of coaching and diversity, equity, inclusion. And it's just a beautiful opportunity to study both the coach and the client, and what both the coach and the client need to bring into a coaching exchange, right? Now, let's look at it through the lens of one dimension of diversity, which is LGBTQ. Oh, surprise, surprise. Queer people are human too. And we want the same quality, the same safe space, the same interaction as anybody else when we get into that coaching exchange, right? But what I find, and this might be because I'm white, right? Very privileged, as someone had mentioned earlier. I find that what I most often get asked as a DEI practitioner and a coach is, how do you have that courageous conversation? Like, where do you start? Like, I don't want to ask the wrong question. I don't want to cross an invisible boundary. I don't want my privilege to come across. I don't want to say something that my client's going to get pissed off about, right? So how do I navigate a world that I don't live in? How do I navigate a world of difference that I'm not? And so this is what I've really been kind of practicing, teaching, preaching, and doing the best I can with, in the past, 3-4 years. And so this is what I've come up with. I love the conversation about authenticity. And I think it's really, and I love the conversation about courage. And I think it's just like, take courage and curiosity and go, poof, and like blow them together. And that's really what you got. And this is the way I talk about it. If you don't ask the deeper, more difficult questions, you're not going to get to the important issues that the client wants to talk about. You've got to challenge them. I'm a little bit of a provocative coach. I put that out there right away with my clients. I'm going to ask you those questions, right? So as a coach, you need to really lean in with your curiosity. I've heard that word about 10 times. With your courage. I've heard that about 300 times. And just a little bit of confidence that says, I'm going to ask a question and I might ask it wrong, but that's okay. Because my client will give me grace, or I'll give grace to myself and I'll rephrase the question and I'll apologize and we'll move on. And once you're able to have courage, curiosity, and confidence, and just sprinkle it with empathy, now you're ready to explore the client's dimension of difference, regardless of their dimension of difference, by the way. And in that way, you can help to influence their thoughts. You can help influence where the conversation goes. You can help the client go in areas that perhaps no one else has had the courage to go with them before. And so, yeah, it needs a trusting relationship. It needs a safe space for both the coach and the client. But the coach has to do a lot of work to understand how the coach is going to enter into that conversation. I've got to know my own belief system, and I have to understand my own dimensions of difference. And I really have to explore and begin to understand what other dimensions of difference are out there in the world and what might be showing up, not assume what's going to show up, but at least be aware of what might show up. And in this way, we can get much better prepared as coaches to coach people with difference or coach people who are different than me. I loved, Misha, earlier, you start talking about the ICF statistics. I mean, the statistics are out there, right? We know that coaching works. And unfortunately, we also know that it's disproportionately white and disproportionately female. I don't even think we measure LGBTQ. We don't measure religion. We don't measure socioeconomic. We do measure disability. And so all of these dimensions might be showing up at any given point in time. And as a coach, you've got to understand that. You've got to ask those questions. You've got to know who your client is. You got to go there, as difficult as it is for you, coach. Yeah, see, it's difficult for us. We still have to go there. So when I have somebody coaching me, I always think of it this way, like, who would I want to coach me, right? I'd want somebody who would see that I'm a woman. I would want somebody that knows I'm gay. I want somebody to know that I'm in my late 50s. I want somebody that knows I'm from Jersey, New Jersey, that is. And I want them to understand all of that complexity in the way I show up and be willing to go there and explore that complexity. So I could go on, right? So I'm going to cut it short, but I'm so passionate about this intersection of diversity, equity, inclusion, and coaching. And I'm not seeing enough people talking about it, by the way, that I just went out and I created a program. It's ICF accredited. And all we do is we talk about how do you embrace diversity in the coaching conversation as a coach? How do you get ready for that courageous conversation? How do you get ready to go deep? How do you get ready to show up with courage and confidence and empathy? And then what can you expect from your client? And how do you stand in service of client? How do you put your judgments and your bias to the side? So it's really exciting, but I'm going to end there because I know there's other questions, and I know there's probably some questions brewing with the folks that are listening very patiently with all of this. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Patty. All right, Victor. How do you help families through coaching support their LGBT children?
So there are many ways, but I'm going to pick on the one that Patty just mentioned, that C to the third power: curiosity, courage, and competency. So in addition to that, C to the third power, and we talked often today around the authenticity of it. So the reality is that when we often get our clients to come in with a topic that is really not the topic that they want to talk about, we discover that topic afterwards. But when it comes to helping children who happen to be LGBTQ and the parents come in, then there is an intentionality on it. We've already gone to the I need help. I already went through the shock, the anger, the resistance, and the acceptance. I'm looking for help. Now, what do I do and how do I go about? And so the reality is where is this, I take the approach of where is this fear? What is the fear that may be overwhelming you around how to deal with a child that happens to be part of the LGBTQ community? And then I engage in conversation around your judges, your own saboteurs, love bringing in the saboteurs, because then we can talk about the authentic you and really understanding what is in front of you that is preventing you from showing as the beautiful parent that you are, as opposed to allowing the judge saboteur behave in such an incredible way that not only are you hurting you, but you're hurting your child and your family. And just like those fires in Canada that we were talking earlier, before you know it, you cannot even contain it. And so identifying those fears, facing the brutal reality of understanding your saboteurs, and learning how to overcome them in such an incredible way that you can accept your child for who or she is, not for who you want them to be. And then undoubtedly, the educational part that we've been talking about, the many resources, despite of the fact that we live in the state of Florida where resources are being shut down by the second, there's other states, and my friend Google knows who those states are, that I can click on and find out movies, webinars, workshops, all kinds of resources for families and children, so we can educate them from the beginning. So when that child gets on the bus with all kinds of things on their legs because they're broken, there's no questioning about who you are and what are you, and don't sit next to me. It's oh, I know why you have those things on your legs. So let me be the kind person that I am and be the first one to either move out of the way so you can sit down, but also the person, the child that understands that LGBTQ it's okay, it's part of life, and why don't I welcome you and be part of it? So let me stay there.
Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you very much. Before we go on, we want Elias to have the opportunity to answer his second question. What I'd like to do is, if this is okay with the panelists, to stay a few minutes for a few questions, question and answer section. I'm sure that there's potentially people have questions. So if for some reason you can't stay, we appreciate you coming, and feel free to log off. But thank you for everyone who was a part of this panel discussion, and we really appreciate you coming to this discussion and taking part. So, last but not least, Elias. So, Elias, how do you use your gayness to help the world?
I'm muted here. I'll try to be brief here. I'm going to use Gary. I'm going to use you again. This idea that my gayness is not everything that I am. My gayness shades everything that I am, but I am a lot more than just my gayness, right? So my whole experience in life has given me, I think, that three things that I would like to offer about that question. One is grit, persistence. And this word persistence has followed me throughout my life. It has not always been a bed of roses, right? And even in the lowest parts of my life that I can go back, I remember that this word persistence was always accompanying me there. And I use that word persistence because I know that there may be, listening to this program here, some new coaches that are there like, what am I going to do with my my coaching business, and is this going to work or not? And I remember, one of my mentors early on in my career as a coach, and I've been in this business almost 20 years now. The mentor used that word, persistence. And I think that my experience as a gay man, persistence and grit is definitely a part, I think, that we all need to bring to the world. The other one is that by noticing that I am different, by noticing that I am in progress, a work in progress, this has given me, hopefully, the opportunity for me to look at the other when they do things that I do not understand. Gave me the opportunity to be curious about that instead of immediately shutting down. So I think that this experience of being a gay man has also given me the opportunity to look at every single human being, to see the potential, the resourcefulness, the greatness, the brilliance of that particular individual, even when I do not understand who they are. And I think that this is such a gift that we as gay people can bring to the world. Not only gay people, but I think that this is the opportunity of acceptance and understanding. And the other one that I want to add here, and I'm adding this based on the conversation here, is visibility. We need to be visible. We need to show the world that here we are doing this, and we are present, and we have a space in this conversation. We have a space in this world. Anyways, I can go on, but we're past time.
Thank you so much, Elias. Yes, I agree with everything you said. Visibility, curiosity, and the fact that we are like we're in progress, as you said. So thank you, panelists, for those questions. Want to open it up to our guest. Anybody that has a question, please just come off mute and share your thoughts.
Hi, this is Walter. Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead, Walter.
So I just wanted to say, first and foremost, thank you. I really just enjoyed so much, just listening and absorbing all the experience and insight and wisdom. And I just want to say, wow, what a gift. What a gift just to hear you talk, all different perspectives. So I just want to give you energy back and say thank you. And the work just continues. That's the one piece. So thank you for that. I want to give that back to you because I've learned so much just in a little bit. So thank you for that. The other thing I was just curious about, because you've been in the profession a long time, I'm curious about your perspective on ICF, whether or not you believe ICF as an organization, how it's showing up in the way that it is embracing, if you will, the LGBTQ community, but also the larger other communities. But specifically, let's stay with this community. I'm curious as to what's your sense of acceptance and experience as you've engaged in this work, being a part of that organization, or maybe even other organizations, European one, others as well.
Yeah, Walter, thank you for that question. The ICF, especially in the last few years, have done a specific job and a concerted job to talk about diversity, even within our competencies, even within when there was an updated version of the competencies, there was a specific effort to have a more inclusive language in the competencies. There is we have like an officer, Gary probably knows this better than I do, in the ICF that is dedicated to.
I just happen to be wherever everybody is all the time.
Exactly. So there is this officer that is specific about diversity and inclusion. We have like a couple of groups. There are specific focus group that is specific on different aspects of diversity. We're still missing one on the LGBT community, but I know that it seems that it's in next in line to be created. So there is a tremendous effort there. We have some members of the top leadership at ICF who are member of the LGBT community. So this has been very much in the radar. Are things perfect? Of course not. But there is at least an effort to move towards that.
I'll go up. I'll give a little bit of the other view just so we can mix things up a little bit here. I agree with everything that Elias just said. 2 or 3 thoughts that triggered for me was, number one, I would have expected an international organization like the ICF that trains coaches to have very difficult conversations with their clients. As I entered into it 3 years ago, I would have expected them to be much further along on the conversation than really beginning the conversation in the year 2020 because the world was forced to. That's my perspective, right? The second thing is, by the nature of the way the ICF defines itself, it's an accreditation organization. I don't think it has the opportunity, perhaps driven by its mission, to be teaching, speaking, and moving the needle far enough in the area of social, political, economic, environmental, and technological advancements for the DEI community. And so I think part of it is a timing thing, and I put a question mark on that. And the other thing is, based on its mission, it's done quite a bit in the past 3 years, but how far is it going to be able to go? Question mark. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what the next 3 years brings.
And the other thing I want to say here, sorry, Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, just to tap on Elias's point, the ICF is committed to having other groups be supported. It's just, again, it's manpower. And on a largely, I've blown away by how many people actually work for ICF, but there's a huge amount of volunteerism, and we all have a say in the surveys and everything they ask. So answer those surveys.
Yeah. I want to say 2 things. I remember one. Let's see if I remember the second one. First of all, I'm always, and I'm going to be presenting at Converge, and I'm going to make a point of saying this when I am presenting at my workshop over there. We always, we have a tendency to say the ICF, right? That thing over there. We are the ICF. The people working there at the ICF, they are working for us. So we are a federation. So it's important for us to engage and change and speak and have our voice heard. I was having an exchange the other day with Gary about why don't we have the LGBT? Let's make sure that it happens. Let's do it, right? So it's an initiative. And the other thing that I want to say is that the ICF is a young organization, right? And in the beginning, the first 10 years of 15 years of the organization, it was like trying to survive and see what is happening. So yes, things are coming together, and little by little. And I think that we need to be mindful of how young our profession is. Right?
Great point, Elias. Maybe one other question. Anybody have any question or comment that they'd like to share?
Yeah, I'd like to share something.
Sure.
So first of all, this has been great. Thank you very much for sharing. As I was listening, I grew up in a country where I was the majority, and I started living overseas, and now I am part of the minority. So I understand a lot of things that were said, a lot of things resonated. Really, it was authentic, all that you all shared. And, I will enjoy reflecting on it. I did want to go back to the point that was made, I think, by Patty, and when we were talking about DE&I. What if I say the wrong thing? That's the title of a book by Verna Myers, What If I Say the Wrong Thing? And when we talk about courage, curiosity, and confidence, I wonder if there is space in that continuum to add caveat and just go ahead and say, I'm not sure how this is going to land, and I'm going to ask it anyway. But if it touches a place which is not comfortable, I would honestly expect you and ask you to, either not answer or overlook it or help me understand. I'd love to know what this panel has to say about that. And before I listen to the answers, I will say, my friend Elias, you are the most complete person I know out of my coaching circle and friend circle. You are not in progress. So You should not say that.
Thank you, Radhika. We need to spend more time together, Radhika, for you to
Oh, I spent
see the
time
whole
with him.
picture.
I've seen him spend time with him. He's got cracks, people. Pay me and I'll tell you all the secrets.
Don't tell anybody, Gary. Don't.
No, I won't. I won't tell a thing. To the question, Radhika, I was scared, and I'm still not scared, but I'm open to the possibility I won't ask a question correctly.
Mhm.
But as we all say, it's worse than not asking the question at all. And I'll bet that every person on this panel, on this call, will be kind and considerate and will take a stand to say, that's not quite the way it should properly be said. You notice I stuttered over Black man, BIPOC. I still, I'm a work in progress, except for Elias, of course, he's all done, but he's fully baked. Can we talk?
I'll add one thing to this, because at the end of the day, it's a courageous conversation, and sometimes we are going to be hesitant as to how we say it or felt. And our Salvatores are going to jump in undoubtedly and make you question. But then I'm going to give you a gift. What is the top left key on your keyboard? Anybody? First one, top left.
Escape.
Escape, which is mostly what we want to do when we're faced with a situation where we have to be courageous about. We just want to escape and forget about it. But no, this is the time where you remember to be empathetic, sympathetic, and have more compassion for you and for your client.
And
that's the choice that you have right there. I'm sorry, Elias.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Victor.
So instead of escaping, remember, and you have it because you're in front of the computer now more so than in person. It's top left, escape. It has a total different meaning now from now to the rest of your life. Empathy, sympathy, and compassion. Elias, it's all yours now.
Just quickly, I have to bring the core competencies here, right? The ICF in the core competencies, it's such a beautiful thing. I say this all the time in training. We take trust and safety for granted, right? Because we live in a society that without trust and safety, it would crumble, right? And the ICF puts a competency right there saying, we as professional coaches, we need to be experts in establishing trust and safety. And it is through that trust and safety that we are courageous to ask that question. And if it doesn't land, I hope that we have been able to build enough trust and safety for us to ask again, or do differently, or learn from the experience. So the trust and safety for me is like a core point of this courageous conversation. We cannot have courageous conversation without trust and safety.
Well said. Well said. So we are,
Gary,
a little bit over.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Gary's saying bye. Sorry, Andre.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Gary. Take good care.
Bye, Gary. Thank you.
Right. See you in Florida.
See you in Florida.
You got it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Soon.
Let me, I'm just going to stop the recording, Misha. Do you want me to continue with you and your statement first?
Don't stop it quite yet. Let me just add the statement, because I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude on how this panelist showed up today. Thank you. A round of applause. And just in my own awareness, I was very present to the emotions that were coming up for me. This is our second courageous conversation. The first one was around Black coaches, and a different emotion came up, the emotion of resilience, I'm going to land it right there. But today I felt teary-eyed, and the emotion of love came up for me. And I did not expect to experience that. And today I felt the power of love. And so thank you, panelists, for just showing up courageously. I started to put down notes on, we have our newsletter coming up. We're ready, have created the template. I was like, all right, get our thank you ready. But everyone, our 1,700 plus email list of people, they're getting this courageous conversation going out on July 3rd, Monday, July 3rd. Thank you for being courageous. Blew my mind on the vision. And Patty, girl, you and I got to talk, honey, because you pulled on you tugged on my heartstring. And I was just like, we could go on for another hour, you and I.
Oh yeah, I think this whole panel could, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
just so much to talk about, so much to say,
So
and so much
much.
to explore. Thank
So
you.
much,
Thank you.
yes,
Yeah.
so much. Thank you, Elias. Representation matters. Thank you, Yannick. Keep educating our community. Victor, the power of love, my brother. I love Forrest Gump. I have a new awareness. And kudos to Gary for just being a trailblazer, like really using his platform. And Andre, thank you for leading this charge today. Thank you. And thank you, guests, our members, our VP of Programming. Jimmy, got to give kudos to him. I know he'd be here if he could be here earlier, but I'm so glad to see you, Jimmy, pop up and say hello.
Finally made it in. Thanks for opening the door, Andre.
And
No
thank you,
problem.
Misha, and thank you, ICF South Florida, for the amazing job that you have been doing throughout the year and throughout these past few years. Ever since I got connected to ICF South Florida, I have been duly impressed with what you have been created, and it reflects on the increase of membership. So thank you so very much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Elias.
Thank you.
Andre, I turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Misha. I just want to say, it was an honor to have you all come in and be part of this. And the way I look at it is you are now friends, you're part of the family. So as we move forward and we start doing and looking at different events and those types of things, you guys are more than welcome to submit. I know Yannick, we talked a while ago about something that you might be doing moving forward. And I welcome a continued relationship with all of you. So thank you so much for being part of this discussion.